And we should be live and on air. It's virtually connecting from and to domain 17. And we have on site Martha Burtis, Alan Levine, and John Stewart. Say hello.
Hi.
Hello. Yes, John.
So let's start with a quick round of introduction, maybe, and your first impressions of the conference on site. And then we'll go around with the virtual folks, and I'll type in the chat the sequence of introductions for the virtual folks. Would that work for you?
Great.
Sure. Perfect.
That means one of us, right? We could gush on all about, first of all, we're in this amazing venue, this 21C museum. It's an old Ford Model T or A factory. Yeah. So everything's got these high ceilings, so it's like urban chic. And with this amazing and kind of crazy art all over the place. And so our sessions are in galleries. And it opened today with this Jim's idea, the Domains Fair.
I think it was, yeah.
Because we're kind of careful about giving credit to Jim.
It wasn't my idea. I can take no credit for anything here. So.
But you know, the conference started with kind of a version of a poster session demo thing where people milled around and shared projects. And it was totally a great way to meet and mingle before we started. And then in this amazing room that had art all over the place.
Yeah, really, really, the central room at the hotel is not really, well, it's a space that's has a big circular purple velvet curtain, if you can imagine,
but
that delineates the space.
And then the floor is this kind of art concrete that is, Adam was explaining, it's the history of the building. So it starts in the center with the wheel representing being an automobile factory, and then concentrically it tells the story of how it changed. It became a parts factory, and then it was closed, and ultimately an art gallery.
Yeah, and so yeah, there's a very strong sense of place here. It's amazing, and the art is really, really something else.
There's some bizarre blank.
Yeah.
And then we're, you know, well, I'm just documenting, but dominating. But Martha's just finished this brilliant keynote.
I just did a keynote, and that went well. And now we're here. That's it. It's very early in the program.
Yeah. John, perspective. You just did virtual connecting.
I was going to let Martha talk. I just got blown away by her keynote, and so I thought it was more important to hear from her. If you do want to catch any of the fair, we did a virtual connecting this morning, and Cindy, Richard, and I walked people around. We only got through about half the fair, but if you want to see what it was like, you can retroactively join in.
So yeah.
Okay. Say hello, virtuals.
Virtual folks. I think Terry, Ken, Ian, Christina, Autumn, and Alex in that order, please.
Okay. Hi, I'm Terry Green. I'm a learning technologist at Fleming College in Peterborough, Ontario.
Yo, Terry.
Ken Bauer, professor of computer science here at the Tecnológico de Monterrey in Guadalajara, Mexico. Hey, Adam.
Buenos días, Ken.
I'm at the College of Charleston down in the Low Country in pre-service teacher ed.
And I'm Christina Hendricks. I teach philosophy at the University of British Columbia in Vancouver, Canada.
You have a new title, don't you?
I will be. Starting July 1st, I'll be the Deputy Academic Director of the Center for Teaching and Learning and Technology.
I just want to say awesome.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's very exciting, Christina. So I am Autumn Keynes. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah,
I can hear you. Well.
Okay. So I'm Autumn Keynes. I am the Associate Director of Academic Technology at Capital University in Columbus, Ohio, and I'm also a co-director of Virtually Connecting. And I really wanted to go to Domains this year, so inaugural year, like it was just, because I love Domains. I do a lot of stuff with Domains in my class. And so I'm really thankful for you guys taking a little bit of time to talk to us today. Thanks for that.
Alex? I think you're still muted, Alex. Is that possible?
That is very possible.
Okay.
So I am Alex Chaucer. This is my first time being a virtual buddy, so apologies for any technical issues I have. I'm also on a brand new Dell Ultrabook, so I'm also navigating that with some Apple Apple pieces of equipment. So that also is adding another level of complication. I'm a GIS instructional technologist up in a rainy Skidmore College in Saratoga Springs, New York.
All right.
I
I think I forgot to introduce myself, actually. So I'm Christian Friedrich from Hamburg. I work with Leuphana Digital School here in northern Germany, a very provincial, small university.
It's cool. I actually met everybody here but Ian in person. So, and we also have Adam Kroom is here, who's our local host.
Good to see you guys.
Put him on the spot.
I want to say, like in Adam's welcome, he kind of issued some interesting challenges for us, which I really liked. And one of them was to not just hang out with people that you know, although we're doing it right here.
I don't know a lot of these people.
But, you know, I think it's a great kind of challenge at a conference to sort of like walk up to people you don't know. And also to like go to sessions maybe where you don't know the presenter.
Yeah, I didn't go to Penguins before I came, and now I do. So I lived up to that challenge.
Well, now that we're recording, what is up with the penguins? I was going to ask anyways.
Oh, so the penguins are part of the art in this hotel. And there's 25 of them, purple 3-foot plastic penguins dispersed around the building. And not only are you allowed to move them around, you are encouraged to move them around. So we gathered a lot of them.
I find them disturbing.
Why?
They don't blink.
They're a little creepy. How heavy are they? How big are they?
Oh, they're really light because they're hollow.
They're just plastic.
And
what are they made out of?
Plastic. There's a gift shop at the hotel, and you can buy a penguin and have it shipped to you at home. But it's a little bit. It's $250.
Ooh.
It's kind of a lot. I was gonna say, how much is a penguin gonna set me back?
I may 3D print a tiny one when I get home.
Number 26.
Yeah, right.
Get a picture. Want to make a Twitter handle for it?
Yeah, you'd have to get its own airline seat. They're so big.
You're right. We would have to. I don't think it would fit in the bin.
If I put a pet ticket, put it in a crate. We're just gonna talk about the penguins.
I know. This is really.
Sorry for asking.
All right.
Can we get a domain for the penguins?
Yeah.
It's very important.
I want to ask.
You said naming.
I know naming is. Yeah. Go ahead.
Sorry, I want to ask what people found from your keynote, Martha. What people were gathering as so fantastic, because we saw such great tweets about it, but of course we haven't been able to hear it here off of Twitter. Apparently, Jim said there was audio though, so we could listen to it later. But
they recorded it because they were
just wondering if.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if other people can say, "Oh, this is what I thought was so great."
Well, I can't because I haven't seen Twitter. Really, any time for questions. So, Alan, tell me about it. It's great.
Yeah.
Oh, that's on the spot. Now I gotta come up with something. Well,
I'm sorry.
There's first of all, because I think I just like snark tweeted something last week. I was trying to find it where I just said, because I've been watching Twitter, because I haven't gone to as many conferences, and I keep seeing these pictures of conferences. And it's people standing in front of bullet point slides all the time.
Oh, yeah.
And so Martha did this intro where she says, I'm going to show you a lot of pictures for my talk, and they have nothing to do with what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But they did.
Isn't that weird? I was talking on the line with
it was brilliant.
This woman from Channel States, and I'm going to forget her name, the dance professor from Channel States.
I don't know.
Anybody know what her name is? Anyway, but I was talking about how that interplay. So let me give some backstory here. The talk itself, when I went to go do the slides, was abstract enough that there just wasn't anything really obvious to put on slides. And I started looking around for visuals to complement it, and it started to feel cheesy. Do you know when you're like hitting that boundary of like, okay, it's just a little too literal, or it's so abstract, it's just dumb. And I knew I didn't want to put up a bunch of words up because I don't do that. So I was just like, maybe I just won't use slides. But so the very end of my presentation, I showed a video that was culled from some interviews that a student at Mary Washington had done this year about domain of one's own with our faculty and students and administrators and alumni. And in particular, I was focusing on one question she asked, which was, if the web was a concrete space, what would it be? And I edited together the various responses. So this was the last thing I did to my presentation. I decided that the images I was going to use were going to be representations of the things that people had identified as their metaphor for the web. So they really had ostensibly nothing to do with the words coming out of my mouth. But once you start to see the juxtaposition of an image with what somebody's saying, it's crazy how your mind begins to fill in a story around it. And I was feeling that way too, as I was looking at the images and reading it, practicing. I was like, oh, well, that one actually kind of works there, even though I didn't pick it for any, discernible reason. And I had told people if they paid attention to the slides and what was in the slides, that at a certain point in my presentation, they might actually make some sense because, of course, when they watched the video, they heard people saying the things that they had been saying.
Yeah, and then you circle back and think about it. But, also that part where you said, in you're thinking about the metaphors.
Yeah.
And how that kind of like deepens your thinking as you're trying to figure out the whole message. And it really worked, because I remember sometimes there are pictures that would pop up and it's like, that's not what she's talking about, but it kind of is in a way, not what she's talking about, but there's some symbol, they're all kind of scenic pictures. And it was basically, she just had the images full screen. Yeah,
it's just an image. And so a lot of what my talk was about sort of pushing beyond the practical goals of domain of one's own that we tend to really focus on, because they're easy to pin down. They're easier, not necessarily easy, but easier to teach. They have really great impact that we can demonstrate in terms of students and how students live within the space of one's own, and really suggesting that while all of those goals are great, those practical goals, I think the time has come for us to up the ante a little bit on how we use domain of one's own and how we talk about domain of one's own as a foundation for a bigger, broader, more critical conversation about the web and about the role it's playing in our culture. And so my last point was this point of coming up with metaphorical language as one way of helping us to really know the web. So asking people to use the language of metaphor or analogy to unpack for themselves what they think the web is or what they think domains is. And what was interesting to me, and I said this in the presentation, was that when I went to go pick those pictures, I was really struck by how looking at pictures, trying to find pictures to, like for example, one person likened the web to a labyrinth. So I went on Pixabay and I was searching labyrinth photos. And it was amazing to me. There was like, I used 3 of them and they're all vastly different. Like one is a rock labyrinth and one is a very structured garden labyrinth and the other is a very unstructured hedge labyrinth. And it was really interesting to me just looking at those different pictures, how it made me then think more deeply about the metaphor that that person had chosen and what that meant in terms of my own understanding of the web. So it's just really a kind of fascinating interplay for me of language and imagery tied up with a concept that's a really difficult concept to actually discern. So, yeah.
And parts of it reminded me, I had a little conversation with John Udell last night, and I kind of said, like, the web that we've experienced, it's kind of like we're at the end of this like glorious age where it was very optimistic and almost like that kind of sad feeling that part is over. And then, but like, there's room for something else, but it's not clear what that is. And so I kind of worry about like still clinging on to that idealized image. And say like, okay, we're going to fragment things. We're going to maybe go back to a large universal common space and go to more dispersed, not silo-ish as much, but maybe smaller scale.
Yeah, I mean, when as I was working on this presentation, one of the things that kept really hitting me and making me sad actually was what if we had domain of one's own 5 years earlier? Like what would that have meant for us as schools and for our students if we had been able to tackle this before those corporate interests had gotten quite such a stranglehold, before the issues that we've been seeing in the last 9 to 12 months around misinformation and sharing of misinformation had become as acute as they are now. I feel like the moment we are in now is so different from the moment when we started domains at Mary Washington. But imagine if we had been able to do this even earlier. And I have the same concerns. And Audrey, in her response, Audrey was in our video too, because she had visited Mary Washington this spring. She definitely, of all of the people we interviewed, she had the most, what's the right word? I don't want to say negative because that's not the right word for it, but the most realistic, I think, and challenging metaphor and thinking about this of all of those answers, and it definitely gave me pause.
Yeah, Ian's asking, so what should we be focusing on? And I
didn't know if that was somebody coming in. What should we be focusing on? So I don't have any good answers to that. Except that I don't think we focused. All I can say is I don't think we focused enough on the things that we could be focusing on in terms of thinking about domain of one's own, not just as a platform for building websites, but as a space, a conversational space for the role of the web in our culture. And so that means thinking about how can those conversations unfold at our universities? And it may be too late to change the path we're on, but that doesn't mean that it's too late to have a conversation, because even if the web continues to change and continues to be a problematic space in our lives, that just heightens the need for us to be talking about what that means. So I think we have to find the space for those conversations. And I think it's a really tricky space to find in higher ed for a variety of reasons. I think it's been a really tricky sell to get people to think, to get people to realize why this actually belongs in our schools.
And also just
go ahead, Christian.
Quick comment, sorry. And I remember having that conversation with in Coventry with actually Jim Groom and Audrey Waters as well after OER 17, because I think what many don't want to miss, but sometimes miss, is that there are not all the same, how do you say that, standards of development and then incorporation of the web or the LMS in higher ed or in education in general. So just as an example, my university where I work, we don't have an LMS, but also we don't have domain of one's own. So there are places where you can kind of start over in some sense, but also, of course, we're exposed to what has happened to the web over the last 10 years, and we are in that environment. So I think there are some different levels of saturation, mayes
depending on where you are.
Term. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure I want to characterize what the web is. I mean, how do you do that? It's you have to be God or something like that. No, I mean, because I think the brokenness is unevenly distributed.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot, but I know on an everyday basis, I still get jazzed by the weird little niches that are out there.
Absolutely, I fall down rabbit holes on the web.
Yeah.
Every day. Gosh, I waste so much time in those rabbit holes.
I know.
But I also learn, I also learn more than I can even quantify through that practice.
But go ahead.
But I mean, while you might struggle, defining the web, I think the other direction that we can come at it, especially if we're trying to make a case to somebody that doesn't get it, right? Somebody either in your institution or, in your family even, who just what are you doing? Why are you doing that? That they might be able to identify a little bit more with is the idea of the digital identity, right? The person. And I think if you can speak from that place in terms of people claiming their space and their name, and understanding the environments that are out there, that there's dangers that are involved if they don't really understand what they're getting themselves into. And, even though I hate the kind of determinist type of, you're just going to have to do it because that's the way the world is going, there's some truth to that, unfortunately. I think that it's kind of naive for us to think that a lot of our students aren't going to be in these spaces, and the idea that we would put them in a place where they could, they're just going to be basically fodder for corporate interests.
Yeah, which is what they are now. I mean,
yeah.
You teach a digital identity. I know we've talked about this because we both taught a class in the fall about digital identity. And you know, are your students freshmen in that class, Autumn? I can't remember.
They are. It's a first year seminar, and then we get to put a theme on it. And so my theme was digital citizenship. That's the language that I use, but.
And that's essentially, we have a first year seminar, and it's about digital identity and citizenship. And it's very telling having those conversations with incoming freshmen about their place on the web. And it's all, the challenge for me too is that it's not just about teaching them, it's about making them care.
Right.
Like, it's about getting them to care about it. I told a story in my presentation that I've said in other places too. The first year that I taught that first year seminar, I posed this question to my students where I asked them, like, how many of them actually fact checked stuff before they shared it or reshared it on social media. And their response wasn't one of some did and some didn't. Their response was one of not caring. They didn't understand why that mattered, right? And I don't say that to disparage my students. I have great students. They are products of a system, right? Like, they have been programmed by a system, and that's something that we have to fight against. But it was really eye-opening in terms of realizing that what they cared about was whether or not what they shared told a good story. And what they cared about was whether or not what they shared was likely to garner likes. And that's not surprising, though. I mean, look at how these systems work. I mean, I have teenage cousins, and I can't follow them on Instagram not because they're sharing anything inappropriate, but because if you read the comment culture among young women on Instagram, I find it horrifying. It is this need for, they put these images out there for this need for constant confirmation from their friends of their beauty, of their coolness, of their whatever. And I find it poisonous, like to
I do too.
And that's who's coming to college. So when they walk into a digital identity class and I ask them if they fact check, they're like, what are you talking about? This isn't, it's Facebook, right? Yeah. But then you look at the election, right? You look at the election in America in November and you're like, oh, guess what? Fact checking actually matters. Like,
because some people are putting stuff out there that isn't facts. Guess what? And oh my God, that's crazy, right? Yeah,
I mean,
but at the same time, like, the whole impact of that hasn't really hit them.
I don't think it has.
I don't think it's a little bit of the surreality of it.
When I was 18, like, I was a more politically active 18-year-old, and I still didn't get it. You know, like, part of this is a developmental issue, right? But the problem is, if you wait too long for the development to happen, is it too late, right? Like,
yeah. And
earlier.
I think about this stuff all the time, and I'm really, really passionate about it. And so it's a treat to be able to talk to you a little bit about it, Martha and Alan and all of you guys, because I just think it's so pressing. And I think it's really important for incoming freshman students, but I even see people my age making these same mistakes, doing the same kind of stuff. And a lot of these algorithms really are able to sort of, give you more of what it is that it thinks you want to see, because they can the longer they can keep you on the page, and the longer they can keep you on the screen, the more they can feed you up advertising that might influence you, and that's where their dollars are coming from. And I just think we don't have enough of these kind of conversations, because, I think we need to get that out there more.
Yep.
At the same time, just telling people they're wrong or their logic is
it's not going to work.
It's like an ingrained pattern of thinking. Yeah.
Part of this is why I come back to this whole idea of metaphors, because I think that when you teach people concepts like this, finding ways to help them understand how this thing is like something else that they do understand, or that they are less threatened by, or they're more comfortable with, or they have more experience with, is a way to is a way to begin, is a way into those difficult conversations. And there's no right metaphor. I mean, that's the other part of it. There is no perfect metaphor for the web.
Except it's not a house.
Except it's not a house. It's kind of a stupid question in a way, right? Like, no, the web isn't a labyrinth, but kind of, yeah, okay, it's a little like a labyrinth, you know, but once you identify those abstractions, then you can have a conversation as much about what that abstraction represents as you can, and then gradually that becomes a conversation about what the web is as well. The other thing that it makes me think of is being able to show students examples through popular culture of ways the web is inhabiting popular culture. You know, whether it's through movies or television shows that play with and toy with the idea of where technology is taking us. Shows like Black Mirror, for example. Like, I show that in my digital identity class. I show an episode of that. I show the one where the guy dies and the wife recreates him.
Oh, that one is eerie.
Yeah, I show that to them.
Do you use the social media episode of Black Mirror?
I haven't, because I think that came out after. Yeah. Which one are you thinking of?
The, like, ups and downs.
The radio.
Yes. Oh yeah. That came out after we had. Yeah.
That was the first one.
Next fall.
New season.
I think you're right. It's a developmental issue, though, Martha. I mean, I was on BBSs and FidoNet and Usenet in the late '80s and '90s, and did some, but most of it was, you know, I just want to play a cool MUD that was just released. Right. But I couldn't go to the coffee shop and talk to normal people because that was a completely different world that I lived in that most people don't. And we have such an opportunity now that all these kids are on the internet, right, but they're not talking about what that really means.
They don't even know what that means. Yeah. Yeah, it's not, there's nothing alter about it anymore.
Right, they're there, but they're just not sure why they're there or what's there.
I'll throw in an idea. Sorry to be off camera the whole time. So one of the things that Martha brought up that was really interesting to me was that we haven't focused enough on search, and that in both the making and creation, maybe the midground is search. And as you said, you know, in whatever community you're in, part of the reason that you're in that particular community is because you sort of knew about it as you were going into the system, or you stumbled across it fairly quickly. There are so many exabytes of data online now that it's whatever metaphor we want to use, seas and nebular clouds are decent metaphors in terms of just the inoperable size, the untractable size of these things. And the only way that you get into a network is by knowing that it exists. And so we go to places where we're comfortable. We talk to the people who are like us. We reinforce ourselves with, you know, infinite loops, and we come out on the other side, you know, less somehow. I'm worried about that. I'm worried that as I encourage people to make website after website, that I'm just contributing to the sea without any real
closing in.
Exploitability, discoverability, whatever you would call it.
That's exactly
good point.
We have to go to other sessions.
We solved everything here. So.
No, they're going to do it after we talk. You haven't eaten lunch yet.
Yummy.
Adam had a good lunch.
Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you.
I think the virtual folks can stay online for another 10 or 15 minutes if we want to, but thanks again for taking the time on site, and enjoy lunch and checking the Twitter notifications after that great talk.
And Terry, what year do you want the internet turned off? You pick a year.
For about 2024 till 2034, I think. Maybe.
Okay, I'll schedule that for you.
All right.
Thanks. Thanks so much, Alan.
Thank you.
And John and Martha.
Okay.
They're gone.
Wow.
They're gone. Yes.
That was deep.
I haven't stopped the broadcast yet, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, keep it rolling.
It's a talk show.
Okay.
And I think we have another 10 or 15 minutes if you're up for it.
Well, there was a lot there for sure.
Yeah,
at least for
to
me.
unpack.
I don't know about you guys. I talked a lot. What were you guys thinking about during all of that?
My head is kind of spinning at this point. You know, the things that were coming up for me, you know, that sort of juxtaposition between telling a good story is sort of what, you know, in terms of, you know, sort of youth posting things and then trying to get likes, and then also looking at and thinking about, you know, psychology, sort of the idea of randomness as sticky, random rewards, you know, sort of and interplaying with sort of social connections, and how, you know, a lot of these sort of corporate sort of systems are just taking advantage of what we know about psychology and addiction, and they're ingraining those types of behaviors in very, very young kids with apps and websites and things, so that as they get older, they're used to, you know, liking and commenting and, you know, sort of getting those adrenaline rushes from getting likes and comments from other people. And so, and that ingrains things in your brain, right? You're making new connections and you're getting used to those types of feelings. So how would we start with sort of the younger populations? Obviously we can work with college students also, but, you know, I have a 10-year-old son, and I'm thinking about, all right, well, how can I sort of, you know, teach him some basic concepts around digital identity, digital citizenship, what to post, what not to post, and how to understand maybe the meta understanding of what he's doing and what those companies are doing. And he, you know, the other day he was saying, oh yeah, this website wanted me to, you know, take a survey, so I took it. I'm like, okay, well, where does that information go? And, you know, so we've had some basic conversations, but again, I'm trying to figure it out as well. So anyway, that's what was coming up for me, the idea of the sort of gamification of social, you know, feedback, and that those sorts of things are coming up for me.
I think it's important to get our kids involved, Alex. Like I was mentioning to Autumn and Mahat before, but my son connected with a group of elementary students from Winnipeg, Manitoba. It's not on the public internet, but we talked about it, what was going on there, and I think it's really important. He wants to record YouTube videos of, you know, playing Clash Royale. And so I need to sit down with him and talk to him and go through it. He's really jived on doing it, but I need to take the time to sit down and do the recording with him and talk about the implications of ramifications of being out there on the internet. And he's 9.
Yep.
I mean, here in Europe, we have this. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I just want to say I was at a session a couple weeks ago in Hamilton, and the presenter brought in one of her students, a digital media student who was he shot Minecraft videos every day, and he had 300,000 followers. He had more followers than like CBC or like all, you know, the news channels in Canada. And he didn't show up to class half the time. She thought he was a problem because he wasn't showing up, but he wasn't showing up because his job was to get a video out every day by 1 o'clock. And
that's what I'm afraid of. My
monetized.
son will have more followers than I do.
You are not afraid of that.
I was thinking, you know, the way I handle this kind of situation is I just cut myself off from some of these, you know, some of the worst offenders in terms of the social media. Like I'm not on Facebook, you know, that kind of thing. But I can't do that to my son. Like I can't just say, no, you may not do this, because then the rest, you know, all of his friends are going to be on whatever the new thing is. So it has to be a matter of me actually figuring out what's going on, and then having a conversation about what is actually happening on this site versus that site versus that site. Because you can't just say, no, don't do it.
Well, they probably have some social media that they haven't told us about yet, that they just use. We just don't know what it is.
I'm not sure if you have that all over the planet, but we in at least like Central and Middle Europe, we have exchange programs, or we used to have, in like 5th, 6th, 7th grade, people or students from school actually exchange with families from France, Spain, Italy, wherever. And I'm just trying to think, like, speaking of metaphors, what would the exchange year for like this part of awareness be? So what would you do? What would France be, like, speaking from a German standpoint, right? And I'm just not sure, because there are lots of these spaces, as you said, that we don't even think of occupying, like this, what's the app called again, where you basically get to lip sync and dance to dance video or to pop music. And those there's like a pair of twins, I think, who have 25 million followers on YouTube. And it's,
that's
they're 13
Musically.
years old or something. Yeah, Musical, right? Or Musically, right?
Musically. Yep.
Yeah. So and I don't know anybody on that. I don't know. I once installed Snapchat just to check it out, and 5 of those it showed basically 5 of my contacts who use Snapchat. So how would I even know what's going on in those spaces? And what's again coming back to what's the exchange here?
Well, and so I do this sometimes, and sometimes I come off the wrong way when I do this, and so I have to preface it and say, like, no offense, like, kind of thing, right? But so often when I'm in these conversations, they drift to, what about the children, right? And it's such a strong point, right? And it really hits people in their heart. But I just feel like we haven't even really figured it out for ourselves, to tell you the truth. And so I almost kind of think what we can do for the children the best is have these types of conversations, figure out ways of being online that are productive and healthy for ourselves, and then we can push those down and pass those on to our children. Because when I look at what's happening on the web today in terms of corporate interests and regular trolling and all of those kind of things that are going on, I don't think as adults we've really figured it out yet. Like, it might even, we might have more to learn from the children than we have to pass down onto them.
Yeah, tying back to Autumn, what you just said, and also what Christian said, and also in ways of talking to faculty, I agree. It's figuring out how can we model the best behavior that we can figure out, and then in turn, sitting with our kids and mentoring them, and for our faculty, sitting with our faculty and working with them side by side so that they can then mentor the students in their classes as well. But I think you're hitting the nail on the head, Autumn, with that, and I do think it's I think modeling and mentoring and keeping moving forward in terms of what we know and how can we actually put those things into practice as best as possible. I think you're right on the right page with that.
And to bring it back to domains, I think domains are a powerful, powerful tool in having that conversation. And I think it's because domains act not just as a tool, but also as a metaphor. And that gets into that whole Virginia Woolf piece and the ownership piece and having those kind of hard conversations.
Well, I think we have a lot of citizens that are web or digitally literate. That they just don't have the digital skill set, and it's simple basic stuff from operating their machine or figuring out that there's stuff behind the scenes that make this phone do what it's supposed to do. And I agree that we need to, my 6-year-old and even my little 2-year-old, it's time to start thinking about developing a domain for them. And it might be a colleague of mine, Christy Pytash, her son is 5. And he has a fishing blog, and he takes photos of the fish that he catches and sends it to his grandparents. Nobody cares. Talked with Doug Belshaw a little bit, and he would have like an acre blog where his son, I believe it was, would talk about here's things that he made or hacked. And so I've been trying to figure out how to do that with my son, and then ultimately my daughter. But I think there's a need for those of us that are out there on the front lines trying to do this work, and being open and social and conducting research or educating. We have to look at each other, support one another, back each other up when all of a sudden the trolls come out and people are coming out, with pitchforks. Be there to back each other up, or figure out what those best practices are and help each other out. So I like one of the points at the end about almost making like a little social network where we say, okay, over here, so-and-so did this to their site. I like that. I'm going to pull that in. I try this. It didn't work. I'm going to pull that in, because we have to mentor each other. And then ultimately we can, work to mentor our colleagues and stuff like that. But I think that we need to take care of each other, those of us that are out there trying to make this stuff happen.
Agreed.
Oh, and Roblox, I'll say it quickly just because, so my son, the 6-year-old, was bit recently by the Minecraft bug. So he was over the summer, he's sitting with his cousins playing Minecraft, and then some of the kids on the street, he's playing Minecraft. And so one of the other kids on the street in second grade, he just graduated first. So this kid that's in second grade said, oh, well, there's this other version of Minecraft called Roblox, where you can build games like Minecraft games. And I was like, that sounds awesome. What's the fear in that? So what I realized is that you can sign in, you can create Roblox games. There's no, some of the games, there was like Cop Killer, there's like ones where you're running around, and he's also saying like, Daddy, like, I like this game because I can murder people. And I was like, you're 6. Like, we shouldn't be talking about this. So then I realized I go in, and then there's like chat features built in. So I'm like, who are these people talking to you? So I went into the settings and turned off everything so he could get chat and stuff like that. But then I'm like, okay, you can get in and basically play and connect with other people, people who we don't even know are chatting with you. I asked the parents, like, what is going on here? They're like, oh, we turn off the chat features. And I'm like, I tried to do that. You can't. I'm like, you're not really protecting your kids. So I'm like, I finally sat down with them and I said, look, you're not playing Roblox anymore. This is why, with all my free time, I'll figure out how to set up like a Minecraft server for you and your friends, but we're not playing Roblox anymore because I don't need the guy at the end of the street coming to pick you up, you know, after, all right, Ken, I'll join yours. You know, I don't need you going off for ice cream with somebody off of Roblox, or, you know, people talk about killing people and stuff like that. So that's the one that really scared me. But the digitally literate moment was that today I was doing work, and so Roblox Google Play pinged me when he tried to reinstall it on the iPad. So I'm in my office doing work, and I go in next door, and I'm like, I know that you just tried to do Roblox, uninstall it. He's like, how did you know? I'm like, because parents know these things, and I'll turn it off. Ken, you got to unmute.
All right.
Oh yeah, so I got a Minecraft server if you want to set up. But I really like that my kids are talking to kids in New Jersey, Pittsburgh, Michigan, another colleague I know here in Guadalajara, and they're talking to kids online that they haven't met in person, and so they're doing a lot of what we're doing now. I've met Christine in person, I met Autumn in person, and Terry as well. But doing a lot of what we're doing now and building up trust with people, I think is really important to show our kids how to do it right. So yeah, I'll get back to you on that.
So I mean, are we doing the right things right now? One of the things that scared me, you know, from the earlier part of the call was, hey, if I would have known what I know now, we sort of screwed up way back when. Are we heading down the right path by working one-on-one, by building domains, by being more thoughtful? Is that the correct path?
I don't know, but it comes back to what Jarrett said in our session with him at the second session again. It's all blurred this morning, where he said we need to just break things because that's how we learn stuff. And I think that's what a lot of us are doing. We got our kids playing Roblox or other games like this, and then whoa, that was bad. And we push this pause button and we talk about it and go back. But we have to be willing to try.
And I don't think there's a correct path. I think there's just many, many, many paths that you can try out and then see if they work for you, whether it's in higher ed or with a 6-year-old. And there's, I think there's just different level of, is attendance the right word? You have to, as a parent or as an educator, have to like the length of the leash, maybe.
Right, attending to our children.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, it's being present. It's what they said earlier. There was this theme earlier in the day of showing up and being present and talking to other human beings, you know, and connecting and go and have lunch. Being present. Bye, Christina. Last words,
Thanks,
Christina. You want to give us brilliant?
Bye, Christina.
Have a great day.
I think it's being present. It's attendance. I think it's that have been key for me lately are being more accessible, you know, and more approachable. You know, so when we go to somebody and say, hey, you need to be web literate in this way, or, you know, you need to have a domain, it's talking to like those normal people and saying, talking in a way that's more approachable, more accessible, that's just doesn't sound, you know, like you're speaking a totally different language. Like what's their approach point in all this, and try and figure out ways to make them see why all of this stuff's important.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to going back through the Twitter and hearing about some of the different metaphors that were presented in the earlier presentation today. And so I would just say, like, while Alan said we're at the end of a glorious age, it's also a very exciting time, but it also is going to take a lot of work and the ability to just jump in and try stuff that you learn about, maybe not hearing about it 3 or 4 times, but maybe on the first time, like just jumping in and saying, what is this thing? And how can I incorporate it into my workflow? Do I trust it? And is it something that can work for me? And is it something that I can share with faculty, with other instructional designers, if it solves a problem and makes sense in my world? So while we may be at the end of a glorious age, I do think there's still, you know, there's still a lot of opportunity out there, and it's, you know, in some ways all the technology's there, and now it's how do you use it? And that's what we need to start to think about is how we're using things and understanding how we're using things.
Okay. Actually, great closing statement, isn't it?
Excellent. Excellent. And I just got my alarm saying I have to go pick up my boys here pretty soon. So.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah. Run.
Send an Uber.
That'll go.
Driverless one.
No,
yeah, just get it. Just get it.
Enjoy the rides home. Well, this was awesome.
All right. Yeah, a great session.
Day. Halfway, 2 more sessions tomorrow.
Yeah, looking forward.
Thanks a lot, Terry, and thanks, Christian, for running the other 2 sessions today.
No worries.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. This was my first as a virtual buddy, and I appreciate you guys being gentle and, you know, holding my hand as I experience this. So thanks, appreciate it.
Thanks for joining us, Alex.
Yeah, thanks for joining. Bring a friend next time.
Yeah,
definitely.
That's our new catchphrase.
All right, so it is. I'll stop the broadcast now.